And then when I saw the movie, I said, "Oh wow, they used it very often." And
Hi everyone, welcome to this special non-VFX for VFX presentation at Spark Effects 2022. I'm Ian Fales from Befores and Afters, and I am joined today by Special Effects Supervisor Gerd Nefzer. Hi Gerd, how are you?
hi, I'm very good, very well.
Thank you so much for being here at Spark, Gerd. For people who don't know, you can see Gerd's work in Dune. He's also contributed to the incredible films Blade Runner 2049, the Hunger Games Mockingjay films, Bridge of Spies, and also A Good Day to Die Hard. That's one of my favorites, Gerd, but don't tell anybody.
It's not my favorite movie, but it was great fun and a lot of practical effects on that show, as you can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, today what we're going to be talking about is this crossover between special effects and visual effects. And I think for some people that feels like an obvious crossover, but as we'll find, there are some sort of key differences, which we'll get into. But I actually wanted to start by asking you about your relationship with visual effects supervisors and visual effects teams over the years on various projects. What can you say about that?
You know, it when all the visual effects and computer effects started in the film business, it was very much different to how it is now. I remember some meetings with directors, going through an action sequence, and there were visual effects supervisor, mostly from a company, from a visual effects company. And when it came to different effects like fire, bullet hits, water, and so on, these guys mostly said, "Oh, we can do everything on computer. That's no problem. We do not need practical effects, So we do everything on computer." And after a few years or after a while, they realized that some of the stuff, it's not looking as good as you do it for real. A, B, it's difficult for an actor, to act in a scene in a blue box where nothing is happening. Just imagine an actor is in a room and there is a shootout going on, and nothing is happening in the room. That's very difficult for him to act and to realize what he has to do or to what he has to react. And that's a very important thing, which then came back, and now it has changed completely. Even the visual effect guys say, "Hey, give me whatever you can," even if it's a small, I don't know, explosion or a small part of a waterfall or a small part of a spaceship door opening, and we build the rest around it. And to be honest, this is the right direction to do really good looking movies, And this has changed completely the last 10 years. And also the director, there are still some directors around. They just say, "Okay, I just want to do practical effects," which I don't understand, because visual effect makes life so much easier, especially if it goes into safety and so. It's for me, it's a mix of both, and it's a work together on the same product, and you have to see that you get the best result out of it. It makes no sense to make physical effects if it's too big, or if it's not possible, then better just do a few elements and mix it in with visual effect.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I don't know if you've sort of picked up on this in the online hemisphere, Gerd, which is this battle between CG and practical. Sometimes it sort of manifests itself in online communications and on Twitter, But I always think really filmmakers are just trying to create the best shot possible, right? That's generally how I feel about it.
Yeah, me too. And most of the shows I did in the past, the last 2-3 years, it was like that, that you really work together and try to get the best from every department and the best looking thing for which later appears on the big screen, And the good thing is, that when an effect work not to plan, or the director didn't like the look, it can be always changed or added some stuff in visual effect, which helps a lot.
Mm. I guess turning to Dune, because that's the most recent work that you've been doing. I've been really lucky to talk to Paul Lambert a couple of times about the film, which has been great. And he's always very so positive about your relationship on this film. And also you were both worked on Blade Runner 2049, of course. But I wanted to go back to sort of what initial conversations you may have had with Paul and also Denis Villeneuve, the director, about any kind of split up or crossover between SFX and VFX.
I mean, this is when you work with Denis, these discussions are always happening very early in preparation, which helps a lot, and then he is such a great director, and the good thing on him, what he has in his mind, ideas, so how stuff should look, he gets out of his mouth, and you understand what he wants, and then of course you have a scene, and then you sit together and try to figure out what's the best way to do it, because Danny is also someone who wants to have most of the stuff practically. Yeah, he said, give me whatever you can, and Paul is the same. It's not that they are egos, or the visual effect guys are egos. That okay, we do everything on computer. It's always a work together, and there is always something you have to look after a budget. You have to keep the costs under control. It's time. It's shooting time. If stuff like simple bullet hits takes really long, and they better do it as an element and put it in post, also timing wise. So we discuss all these different shots really in detail, mostly from a storyboard, which we get very soon from Denis and storyboard artists, and then we just sit on the table and go through every scene, with DOP and visual effect, and we try to figure out what's the best thing to do. And then, like a scene when they fly to the spice harvester at the beginning of the movie, this scene was really done shot by shot, and what we do practically, what can we do practically, what is visual effect, what completely CG shot, and then you find out, okay, the scene, we're shooting this in 5 different places, and then on flying rigs, as well as in the desert, as well as on a backlot. And then you get every information from the different departments together, and then you make a decision what's the best way to do that shot, and what looks the best, and like I said, this scene, it was a combination out of lots of different shots on different places.
Yes, and seeing as you mentioned the flying in the ornithopters, I just thought that cockpit work, getting into them, landing, views of them in the cockpit was so beautiful. And as you mentioned, lots of different ways to do it. What were the different ways? We're talking full scale builds here, but also cranes and gimbals, right?
Yeah, correct. It was everything. So we did some of the landing stuff of a huge 400-ton construction crane in Jordan in the desert. So location built a special road to get this heavy crane into position, and we worked out the best position to put the crane, because if you put a huge crane just in the desert, you can be sure sooner or later it's in a shot, and this was worked out long before with Danny, with Greg, with Paul, and a few others, where just to put this huge crane, to not have it all the time in shot, and then we had construction or art department built a huge helicopter, ornithopter,
Yeah.
which came out much heavier than planned. You know, at the end of the day, this thing had 12 tons, but nevertheless, we were able to put it on the crane, you know, to lift it, lower it, have a couple of meters of flying, you know, by turning the crane on lowering the thing. So the landing in the desert, we did actually practical in Jordan in the desert, with dust and wind and downwash and so. And visual effect made all the propeller or the ornithopter blades on. And the shots where they're in the cockpit flying towards the harvester. Greg and Paul came up with the idea, and I said, "Oh man, are they crazy?" They said, "Okay, let's find in Budapest the biggest hill, and we put the motion base up there, and you know, we build a bit of or a sand screen around, you know, and we want to shoot it in the right light with real sunlight." And at the beginning, I thought, "Oh, are they crazy?" You know. But then if you look at it, how it looks, it was 100% the right decision. So then we built it we built a special motion base as well, a 20-ton motion base, because the motion base, what we had was too small. It carried just 5 tons and it was not enough. So we made a 6-ton motion base. They put a concrete foundation. We put the motion base on top, you know, and after the first test, we realized, fuck me, the sun is moving, you know, and we actually couldn't stop the sun from moving. And if you just have, it sounds weird, but you know, we program normally we program everything in Maya, you know, and show it to the director, discuss the movements, and then we put it into our motion-based moving system. And then we realized very early that we have to turn the ornithopter 180, 360 degrees, always facing the sun. Yeah. If you just imagine you have the motion base, you know, and the ornithopter nose down and nose up, and you turn this thing, you know, and the motion base stays, then it's not nose up and down, then it bangs to the side, you know. So we had to invent we invented a special, I call it sun clock program, you know, where we can always put the ornithopter in the right position to the sun and do exactly the same movement on the ornithopter, you know. It wasn't taking very long, so it was a couple seconds, you know. Then Paul or Danny or Greg could say, "Okay, now we start on 2 o'clock," you know. So we turned it ornithopter on top at 2 o'clock, and the program automatically changed movements of the base. You know, that we have always the same movement inside the ornithopter, which was quite a task, but it worked out very well. And also we realized we usually do everything in Maya, you know, program everything in Maya, discuss it with DOP and so on, put it on the motion-based control system. And then he's always someone who wants to add stuff, you know, like, okay, we're flying, we bang to the right, we bang to the left, or we got something is going off, or we fly into turbulences, so shake now, shake now. So we invented also a program, we call it simple bomb tool, you know. And it was just, you have a the standard flying program of the ornithopter, and you just hit a button and you can, you know, put another side program in, like bang to the left, you know, you have this normal flying stuff, and then he said bang to the left, switch the button, and it's banging to the left and back, or nose down and nose up, so that we can fulfill Danny's cues, you know, when he wants different movement to get a reaction of the actor. Sometimes it was also to surprise them, you know. So let's shake it, you know, and then we shaked it, and they reacted to the shaking, and so yeah, that was and it worked out very well. And I have to say, it's looking really cool, and to shoot this in right side, this was 100% the right decision. And when you look at all the closer interior and exterior ornithopter shots of the thing flying to the harvester.
Yeah, I
But
love
then
that.
we had, of course,
Go ahead.
right, of
Sorry.
course, some we had in total, I think we had 3 of the large ornithopters, 1 small ornithopter for the crash, and 1 small ornithopter cockpit when they fly, when Jessica and Paul fly to the sandstorm. And it was actually most of that stuff, interior of the cockpit of the small ornithopter was done in camera. And they built a box, you know, a sunscreen box. We put the motion base in. We had tons of wind machines and more tons of dust. And we blew a lot of dust over the cockpit, and also we made soft stones, you know, that bounce off the cockpit. And the inside of the cockpit was sealed, so we always fed fresh air in, you know, for the actors to not have them, you know, covered in dust. And in the inside, we then had also a small smoke machine to get a bit of atmosphere in the cockpit. But after that, you know, you needed to shower 5 times before you get all the dust and everything off yourself. You had dust and sand everywhere.
That's an interesting thing to talk about, Gerd, which is dust, which is usually the enemy of visual effects supervisors and artists. Now, you've already mentioned sand screens, and in case people don't know, there's actually one in the picture behind you, and it was generally the way they were the blue screens of Dune, you know, effectively the same color as the environment. Paul Lambert had also kind of pioneered this way of inverting it so that you could kind of get a key, although I don't think that was the main reason for them. But the sand screens were awesome. But I can ask you about dust, because usually VFX soups hate it, but I imagine here it was so important to help tell that story and to do the integration. What I really want to ask you is, did Paul or anyone else say, no, please, no more dust or anything like that? Or is it really, no, we need that kind of integration?
They just said it when it was too much dust, you know, when you can't see anything, you know. But in principle, if you have layers like dust that you see in the background, or even more, they were fine, you know, to deal with it. I don't know how they did it, but it was amazing. It's cool, you know. And it was hard, you know. We always on every different scene which involves dust or atmos, you know, we always my set supervisor is always talking to Paul and asking me, hey, Paul, is this the right level, or should we decrease it or increase it or whatever? And this is mostly worked out during the day. But then also Greg, you know, our DOP said, no, I need this dust, give me more, and they handled it, you know. And I think in these days it's still tricky, but it's possible to work around this dust thing, you know. And on Dune they handle it because we used lots of dust, and also in the desert itself, and when Paul was sitting in front of the spice crawler, and later on when he's in a kind of sandstorm, we used fucking full dust, you know, and they dealt with it, you know, and it was okay. Like I said, I do not know how they do it, but
no, they're amazing. This is the teams at DNEG and elsewhere did some amazing work with compositing.
And also, you know, like you mentioned this colored screen, like it's hard to get out of my mouth, like blue screen or green screen. On Blade Runner and on Dune, you had to be very careful if you offer a blue and green screen, you know, because they say no. Of course, this and that, and the light spill and what have you. Of course, they use, for some shot, they used a bit of green screen or blue screen, you know, but most of the time they really try to work around it, especially for light reasons, you know, and like Paul's great idea with the sand screens, you know, and for some shots like interior shots of the ornithopters flying, you really get away with dust and looking at the sand screen with the shots, you know. Some shots they could use like we shot them. And if you have a blue screen behind, it's not possible. Then it's not possible. Also, I think when you have blue screen behind it, it's tricky with dust and smoke. So that is with the sunscreen, that was great.
Absolutely. And I guess I mentioned DNEG and some other shops. It's a shout out to the rotoscoping teams as well, you know, who do that digital roto to do with the dust and the sand screens and getting those characters, you know, off the frame, to enable other CG imagery and other compositing to happen. And I only bring that up to sort of bring up the collaboration that ultimately happens, Gerd, with all that work to get to a final shot. It's really incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I have to say, Paul Lambert he's just a genius. I mean, he has so good ideas, and he's such a nice guy to work with, which is very important, which was on Blade Runner, especially on Dune. It was a movie making family, you know, and there was one aim, you know, to get the best for Denis, you know, the best look for Denis, and there were no ego where saying, no, we have to do this and this and this. It was always a work together, and Denis is surrounding himself with such great people, you know, HODs of every department are really open, and this is how every movie should be, you know, like we work as a team together on a movie, you know, on product, and this has to be, you know, the best or as best that you can, you know. And on other shows you have this department working on the project and this department, and sometimes they work together. Not on Dune. It was always a work together, and this is what you see on the screen, you know. This is what you see on the screen.
Yeah. Just before we leave dust, I am actually genuinely interested myself, is what is special effects dust? Like what do you blow?
To find the right dust, that was a task as well, because we first shot in Budapest, you know, 2 weeks before we went to Jordan, and in Jordan and Abu Dhabi, the sand color is so reddish brown, you know. So we got a few sand examples from Jordan and from Abu Dhabi, and tried to find a product which matches the color, you know, as good as we can, because we shot scenes here and there, and then you should have the right color. And then we also found out it's a huge difference if you have the dust just, you know, dressing or in your hand and you look at it, and you have the sand on the other side. If you blow it in the air and the sun hits it, it's a completely different thing. And we did quite a few tests, and we had different colors. I cannot tell you the secret about the dust, but it's also used as a product in the makeup industry, you know. So of course you have to look that it's not poisoned or whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, every dust which is going into your lungs, it's not the best thing to have. So, but the good thing was, you know, when we shot with the actors, they had these still suits on, and they had always masks on, and they could tie the dust mask under their breathing mask. That was the good thing. But still, I mean, in Jordan also, when you do a sandstorm, it kicks up sand, you know, and you get everything. And the team could use dust masks. So yeah, that's important. And whenever we had the actors like in the cockpit, you know, and they wanted to have a bit of dust in the cockpit, we did it with smoke. And then Paul changed the color and what have you.
Right.
And at the end of the year, I think we used 18 tons of dust. We shipped it from Budapest to Jordan and back, and yeah.
Oh, I love it. I guess as part of that practical interaction theme on Dune, one of the other things I talked to Paul about was a really cool mechanism you developed that allowed for the shaking of the sand in a couple of shots, you know, which kind of heralds the arrival of those sandworms. But what did you do to make that happen?
Um, we at the first Dune script, there was a part of a ship or ship sinking into the sand, you know. So we tried to find a solution to make that happen. So we went down the road with, you know, not using sand, using some different materials like cork or vermiculite, you know, and tried it and tried it. And we found something in the internet with it's called liquid sand. You find it on YouTube, and they have air jets under the sand, you know, and lots of air jets, and they blow air into the sand, and then you sink into the sand. But you know, that look wasn't wrong, you know, because then you have all these bubbles and sand flying at the top of the sand, which Paul did not really like. So I can't actually remember how I came up with this idea, with this kind of, okay, somehow we have to vibrate the sand, you know, to get it, the different sand particles to get, you know, away from each other, you know, to make it, however it's the right word, to make it fluffy and not compacted. And then we tried it with vibration engine, you know, we put it a vibration engine on a steel plate, and we put it a bit of sand on top of it, and we started to vibrate, and it looked and created really very nice ripples. And the vibration engines we could control in different speed and different vibration systems, you know, we mounted to the side, underneath, and whatever. And then we added more sand, and then we added, let's say, 20 or 30 1 feet of sand on top of it, dry sand, and you know, it still worked, you know, and it gave us this weird movement. And the good thing was, you know, like the close-up shots when Josh and Paul, you know, putting their hand and they're sinking into the sand. It was actually one of these vibration blades, you know, and we had it full vibrating. And then if you put pressure on your hand, you sink actually into the sand. And I've never thought that we use this thing very often. When we first tested in Budapest, we had just had a small sand test area, you know, and then the sand, of course, was different, like the sand in the desert. Because the sand in the desert, they have the corn is round shaped, and the sand which you buy is not round shaped. That's like like with edges and so. And this was moving different, like the sand in the desert. And we first time used these vibration blades in the desert, and we were all surprised how good this was working and looking, you know. And then when I saw the movie, I said, "Oh wow, they used it very often," you know. And it was just I can't remember how we came to this idea. It was one of these things you just say, "Okay, let's try this," you know, and then you find out, okay, that's not bad. Let's show it to Paul, and Paul said, "Oh, okay, that's looking good, but we need it in a bigger area," you know. I said, "Okay, we build a bigger blade," you know. I mean. And then we showed it to Denis, you know, and the good thing was that you could regulate the engines, the RPM, and then you could really go very slow with small ripples, and you can go to full blast and creating holes and everything. And Denis liked it as well, and they said, okay, let's use it in Jordan. So we shipped all these engines and blades to Jordan. But that was one of the small things, you know, which actually no one is realizing when he looks at the movie how much work is behind that, you know. And it's one of the small things which is practical and it's looking cool.
Yeah, and it does look cool. And of course, what I think is that it's a way of solving it on set with the actors there, getting them immersed in the shot. Of course, the CG visual effects companies could simulate sand, and they did, you know, for other scenes, dunes and sandworms. But imagine, you know, there are other vibration scenes that they might have worked on. But it really, you feel the character, you feel Paul in that moment there, and I think that's the whole point, isn't it?
It is, and this is, like I said at the beginning, this is something what is very, very important for Denis. You know, he said, I need this to work with my actors. You know, and then you have to find something do something, you know, that the actors are actually in the right environment and having the right tools and gadgets to work with, you know, to work with their hand, to feel when they're in a sandstorm, to feel the sandstorm, like, you know, feel there's so much dust coming and hitting the face and whatever, that they hardly can see anything. Of course, you can do this everything in post, for sure, in these days, fine, yeah, but this is not how Danny want to make his movie, and Paul also. He says always, give me as much as you can, and then either when it looks crap, we paint it completely out and make it new. That can also happen, you know. Of course, if something is not looking good, you know, like I don't know, sandstorm, then they have to paint the dust out and add other stuff. This is what it is. But I mean, most of the shots work, you know, and of course, you know, with this vibration platform, we just could go a certain size, and all the rest was then CG. And also when the sandworm bursts through the sand, you know, Paul had a crazy idea on that. You know, we were shooting actually in Jordan, and exactly on the border to Israel. So military area, and he said, hey girl, we bring in some high explosives and we do a few nice explosions, you know, that we maybe can use the sand as an element. And I said, okay, yeah, but do you know where we are? And he said, why? I said,
no way,
it's military zone. I mean, over there is Israel, and you were not even allowed to drive equipment in this military area when you, as you have to let them know over there what you're doing, you know. And then there was this explosion idea. But you know, this they did. I think they did everything with the sandworm, the big stuff. They did CG and all the detail that's looking so beautiful, you know. The big sandworm is coming out of sand with the sand. That's beautiful. That's beautiful made. That's perfectly made.
Yeah,
but on the other
so
hand,
good.
you know, and then Tim is standing there and he gets hit by sand or so. This is something what we then did, if possible. We had a few places in Jordan where it was tricky to get our equipment, you know, and then it was also visual effect.
Right. And you know, that mix of CG and your work, I think there's a particular shot that was so stunning to me in the cinema, and it's the palm trees on fire. Good. And I mean, that is clearly a shot where I imagine the visual effects studio has extended the environment and possibly added extra palm trees. But I saw maybe on your... Oh, well, you tell me about it, because I saw on your Instagram, I'm sure, that these were steel palm trees.
I mean, in the movie, you just see it for a few seconds. In the trailer, you see the palm trees longer, but that's been 20 palm trees. And
really?
I think they didn't add anything. Maybe what they add is a bit more fire, you know, after a while. But we prepped actually 20 palm trees. So
that's amazing.
We used the original tree trunks, opened them up, you know, get 8 lines for propane gas, for electric ignition, and for IPA into the tree trunk, and then we laser cutted 250 palm tree leaves, and we put it a gas pipe underneath. Then we had to bend every single leaf to make it look right, you know, bend the thing, put it to the tree. And we had 2 huge 5,000 liter propane tanks, and I think 60 regulators to feed these palm trees. And every single palm tree was controllable, you know. I will not say every leaf, but every second or third leaf on the palm tree was controllable. And that was a huge amount of work. But I said, I mean, I think in the trailer there are also the 20 palm trees, and these were done for real. but for sure, some of the fire they enhanced or they did something on that. But most of this was done for real.
It's a stunning shot, very meaningful because it feels like the real downfall of the city. And it's quite compelling on the big screen. So I was so excited to learn that your work had resulted in that, Gerd.
Yeah, I think that was good fun with the palm tree at the end of the day. But yeah, the difficult thing was we shot this over 3 nights, you know. And at the beginning we had, of course, real palm tree leaves on the palm trees, but after 2 shots they were gone, and then we still had our laser cut it leaves on the palm trees. This was also done. No, we had, I think, 25 palm trees. We had 2 for testing and 3 for if one gets destroyed. And then we did our tests like always. We started with propane, you know, and then we thought some of the palm trees they need a bit more volume in the fire, or they need also a fire that the part of the trunk is burning. So we added alcohol system, you know, with pumps where we can spray alcohol in to give the fire more volume, which then creates also then much more heat, you know. And yeah, it was a task to to get these palm trees over the 3 nights.
Right. In that larger battle of Arakeen sequence, were you delivering a lot of practical fire elements and explosions? Because again, I thought DNEG did a great job of generating explosions and fire.
Oh, wow, they did a great job. Of course, we delivered something, but not as big as most of the people assume. So we did, of course, we did some fire explosions, especially to get the right light for the actors. And we also used propane flames or IPA flames, you know, but that was just for mostly for light and lighting reasons. And all the explosions of the ships and so that was all done CG, and I have to say this is the beautiful fire explosions and spaceships explosion that I have seen on screen. I have to say, I mean, and you know, the ships which are exploding, they're so big in scale that we were not able to do anything there, you know. But what we did, like I said, we did explosion for the light and for everything, but the rest was done visual effect, and it's looking so cool. I love it. I mean, when I saw this first time, I said, wow. And I know what little we have done, you know, for the explosion. And then you look at it and you use Dune, and you completely overwhelmed by what you see, you know, what they have done with computers. That's absolutely great.
It's absolutely epic.
Also, it's also always if they do something, you know, it has always the right, I hope I get it's always the right taste for the movie, you know. Even the explosions, you know, it's different. Like, it's not the biggest and highest and whatever. No, it has to fit to the story, to the overall style of the movie and how Danny wants to see action, you know. So action is not for him the most important thing, but it has to be there, you know, as a component or as something, you know, also for his actors, and you know, that they Paul and they did the job, or they did what Danny wanted 100%. And also when on Blade Runner and on Dune, you know, when you see what the DOPs are shooting, you know, and then you ask yourself, how the hell can visual effect match these beautiful shots, you know? But it matches 100%, and you do not feel that this is a visual effect, or it's not fitting the light, or it's not fitting whatever the scene. And that was in Blade Runner and as well in Dune, you know, that was fantastic work.
Yes, I totally agree. It's funny, good. You mentioned action there. I actually, it reminds me of a scene, or it makes me think of a scene from Blade Runner, where Denis just does action differently. And it's the scene where the seawall scene, where love and, you know, the fight happens with the seawall and the things flooding, and, you know, the spinner is sort of going down into the water. I just felt there was something so different about that action scene. And it makes me feel like, again, there's this great combination between practical effects, because clearly that is water, and then visual effects sort of extending the environment, but maybe not as much as people think. But
No,
can you talk a bit
not
about that? Yeah, can you talk about that
not as
sequence? I love
much
it.
as people see. So we built it a huge pool for that, and put the seawall in the pool. We had a deep water section in the pool where we had the spinner on a track rig sinking into it, and was most of this was, even the waves was done practically, you know. That scene is lots of practical effects, and that was in the short time what we had to build all this stuff. That was one of the biggest challenges we had in my movie history, you know, because the plan was first to shoot this scene in Malta on an existing tank, but for schedule reason it wasn't possible. So, like I said,
Right.
it was build a tank there. We built wave machines, dump tanks, water shooters, and all this stuff. We built it in a couple of months. And you know, the scene, it's looking very good, and you see that it's real water, real waves. This spinner sliding into the water, sinking with Harrison and Ryan. You know, we had, like I said, we had for the limousine, when it starts get hit by the waves and it started traveling into the water. We had this thing on a track system, and we could actually level the limousine on top. We could rotate it, you know, and we could sink it to a certain water depth. I think it was 3 feet, was on the track, and then we took the limousine off and put it on a crane rig to be able to sink the whole limousine completely underwater. And it was something must happen by mistake. Like, it went always later in the year, you know. And the pool build took very long, you know. We of course had to heat the water, and then outside went colder. One day we had even ice on the seawall, and then because the water was warm and the outside temperature was cold, the water was starting to steam, you know. And we had this from day one on, and at the beginning it was a bit too much, so we had to cool the water temperature down. But then Roger really liked the look of the real fog or steam, you know, and then we used it during the whole seawall scene, and that was what was really a cool look. And what I realized that while I learned from Roger Deakins and Blade Runner, of course you can make fog with smoke machines, you know, but you can also make fog with water and with steam or with mister systems. And the look is so different because on water mist or on steam, you have these water particles, and the light is mirroring in these particles very beautiful, which is not doing when you use smoke machines. And that was also something what looked then really cool on the seawall scenes, and also at a lot of the other scenes of Blade Runner. Most of the fog which we did on Blade Runner was water-based, was mist systems, water smoke systems, and not regular hazers or smoke machines.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm so glad to have talked to you about that sequence and bring up Blade Runner 2049. Of course, a film that you won an Oscar for, very deservedly there as well. Good luck with Dune. I'm got my fingers crossed for the whole team. And
Thank you very much.
Good. It's been so awesome talking to you and talking about that crossover between visual effects and special effects. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It's always good when you can explain the non-movie makers how things are done. And also in these days, you know, with physical effects has still a very important part in movie making, you know, as well as visual effects. So thank you very much, and I hope you understood my bad German English.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Thank you so much, Gerd. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.